I guess I want to say that it doesn't sound like these men are talking about anything necessarily criminal. And I'm making that point for a reason. We'll get to it later. But definitely, I think, in poor taste and very much misogynistic in a way that I don't think the relationship between black men and black women in pop culture these days can sustain. But what does Michael Harriot think?
Well, I think there's a couple of things that we have to consider. One, the first thing is like there are men who are misogynists. And, that's been true 50 years ago. That was true 20 years ago. And it's true today. Right.
Okay.
But I also think that, it's easy to cherry pick a few popular podcasts and then think it is indicative of something that is going on overall or something that is going on in the culture. When the truth is.
Did we say that? We said that before.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. We choose to listen to them. Like, I got a podcast. Like Neil deGrasse Tyson has a podcast, and like Greg Carr has a podcast. And we're talking about like some rappers from the 2000s.
That's hate.
Some people who were athletes, and then expecting to hear something that's different from locker room talk and people who were rappers in the 2000s.
He has a point right there.
It's weird to me. Like there is misogyny, some of the things that they say, or like what we would call problematic, but it is also what you would expect to hear from people who you give a mic to and platform and say, hey, say stuff into a microphone.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very important point of accountability you're making there, Michael, which is we can't kind of over-index our consumption of a particular type of black man's content, former rappers, former athletes, people that no longer participate in the thing that they used to at the highest level anymore, and then complain that it's misogynistic. When you're right, there are many black men who have access to microphones that are talking about extremely empowering things, even as they relate to black women.
You want me to do it?
You can go ahead. You can start.
Eboni K Williams is embarrassing to black people. I feel comfortable in saying that. I will stand on that hill. And then what's so sad is I have on record of me wanting to photograph her, to speak to her, to sit down, because my introduction to Eboni K Williams was on The Breakfast Club, and her sounding super intelligent, realizing she's from Charlotte, realizing she went to Chapel Hill, all these beautiful things, and realizing her fighting for black people. But only thing that Eboni K Williams have proven to me for the last year is that she sold her soul for clicks. Eboni K Williams has shown me how she sold her soul to be a double agent, because let me tell you this, when it's go time, when Eboni K Williams want to talk to black women and tell them who they should date and how they should date down and all this other BS, black women get her straight real quick, and then she go back into hiding. But you know what? Like we spoke about off mic, because it's going to get edited out, black men have become so much of low-hanging fruit that it's go time, and you can take shots.
You can take shots, anything you want to get off your chest. And here's the thing. I get so sick of everybody be like, no, you should never get y'all mics and blah, blah, blah. Look, this is a new medium. It's here.
It's here, and it's not going nowhere.
It's not going nowhere. Like, podcasting is what the news, industry was in the late 1800s.
Facts.
This is here. This is the beginning stages of it. And I like everyone having access. I like when I hear somebody that I disagree with say something. I like somebody that when they say, how they actually feel, even if it's anti-me, I like that information being out there. I like us not having to pretend that we feel a certain type of way because there's no evidence of, people being bigots or people being racist or people being misandrous or people being misogynistic. But the last thing I'm going to say is y'all have to stop saying that men are misogynistic just because we have a difference of opinion.
Facts. Well, here's my issue. I ain't even offer her yet. Bruh, sorry, I gotta do it. We gotta have this conversation. Eboni K Williams is a clown, bro. Like, it's almost embarrassing, because I look at your numbers. I look at what your numbers do when you talk about, hey, uplifting the community, or when you try to talk. But you know what happens? And I feel like this. Somebody over there at her network doing what she does is saying, hey, numbers ain't looking down. We got to get them back up. And when we look at the board of like, what's the quickest way to get these numbers up? A gender war amongst black people will work.
Yeah. So that's always the go-to.
I don't like you saying washed up men from the 2000s, misogynistic podcast, and then you start throwing strays.
Especially when you're our age. Hell, absolutely. Not even your age. She's my age.
Facts. So we looking at it, and Cameron who's built a platform where, hey, he talks to Mace, he catches a stray. Gilbert Arenas catches a stray. For what? I know what you're doing. You trying to get on their radar so now they can talk about you. So now that you can become in a cycle where you debate these men who you know you are more educated than. Not saying you smarter than them. You just have more education. And then you know they got bigger numbers than you. So it's going to help you and your brand. Yo, you working for another. You are a double agent to me. Now,
I think that's been
clear.
That's been like the internet, especially Twitter in general, when it comes to everybody that's been misandric, right? Like they're able to get it all off while still on one hand saying, "Oh, black girl magic, pro blackness, you know, waist beads, septum ring."
He said,
right? Like for real, like it's like the cosplay outfit of being pro black while hating black men.
It's disgusting.
And then when we call it out and we're just like, all right, man, we're gonna tell men to like, you know, avoid y'all. Now everybody's upset because they're understanding that the good dudes out here, right, good bros, don't know how to communicate with women. We're gonna get to that at the end. But you know, those men aren't gonna be there at 38, 39 to accept them having a little, you know, Baquan baby.
And you know, all right, so let's get to the meat of it. Misogynistic podcasts, are they out there? Sure. We've seen them get demonetized.
We've seen them get, I mean, probably the biggest one get, you know, demonetized.
We've seen, and you know what?
And here's the thing, that pod was never supported by black men. Even though it was two men cosplaying as African American, they were not.
Yeah.
They were Somali and Haitian, I believe. But they was cosplaying like they were actually African American. African American men, by and large, did not follow that podcast.
And so then we look at it. Well, what is Eboni doing? What is who she work for? The TheGrio?
I don't know, TheGrio, yeah.
Yeah. What are they doing to say, yo, you know what? The non-misogynistic podcast, let's start highlighting them.
Well, I mean, it's so hard because, again, if you just simply disagree, you are a misogynist, right?
Facts.
Like if I just simply say like, hey,
or you gaslight.
we don't want, you know, out of wedlock babies, right? Like, oh, you know, we should have a conversation when we meet a woman with the kid to figure out like, hey, what the hell happened between you and that child's father, right? What is that child's father relationship in that child's life, right? Just simply asking these questions is almost like, well, you hate women. Like, no, like, come on, man. Like, you are being very, 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 very stupid right now.
Absolutely.
In this conversation. And we don't say that. We don't really let people know that, like, yo, you're being a dumbass in this conversation. And right now, that is the conversation. Any kind of pushback whatsoever, it's like, oh, you're a fucking misogynist. And they're trying to push something here because what they're seeing is there is a rise of black male podcasts that actually has high quality content, and they're not athletes, they're not entertainers, they're not rappers, they are college educated, and they're saying not only the same thing, but they're saying it better. And they see that tsunami coming, and they're like, "Oh, shit." Because a lot of pods that you hear from guys that are really, really good online. These guys are like super fucking educated.
Yeah,
like they're not idiots at all. Like you can't move into this space and be an idiot and be good at it.
Facts.
So I think low key they see that coming, and the behaviors of the top third of black men is way different than the behaviors of college educated women. And we can talk about that on the live on the YouTube. And I could dive into that. I'm not going to dive into it now because then y'all going to say I'm being misogynistic.
Facts. Out of us two, who's more misogynistic?
Neither one of us are misogynistic. Neither one. But I can say the audience probably sees the pastor as being that.
And you know what's weird? Man, some of my favorite clients, man, they be trying to sneak that in there. Like, especially girls who ain't never paid me. They always, I feel like sometimes it's like, yo, sis, cut the check. I did too much free work for you to be seen as misogynistic. And that might be misogynistic.
I mean, misogynistic is a disdain for women, bro. Like, there's no black men in this country. By and large, right? Like you can find the bottom third of black men. Yeah, you'll find dudes down there that are misogynistic.
Facts.
But black men, by and large, have always been, inclusive of black women in everything that they do. Right? Like it's just, I mean, for civil rights, even when feminism took off, right? And like black studies have damn near just became black female studies, right? Like,
Facts.
You know what I'm saying? Like there's not even a black male gender studies program, and black males were the ones that was being lynched. They were the ones that was being murdered by and large during, the enslavement of Africans, right? And black men was even okay with like, if black studies or if Africana studies become, the disenfranchisement of women, we were okay with that. What we didn't expect is for this lens to be, well, black men, you're the oppressor. How am I the oppressor? I'm literally right next to you every day since we've been on this continent.
Bro, my favorite joke was 2 weeks ago when they was killing y'all on Twitter. Men, especially men of color, for calling yourselves feminists. And look, I ain't gonna lie, I was retweeting some of it because y'all right. Because I remember being on the podcast and a dude, he said, I identify as a feminist, and I choked up. Sometimes when people say something so stupid, you choke up and then you look compliant because you just like, I have nothing to say.
Yeah.
It threw me, clutch my pearls.